first trend that I really wanted to highlight was just a huge focus on student and family engagement. When we looked through our data, we sort of looked at the few months before COVID and after, and the number of phone calls home to families just shot up massively. 2.8 times, almost 3 times as many calls going home before. Now, some of that I think is there really were more calls home. I think some of that was there was more of a focus on making sure that every single family was getting regular contact, and making sure that everyone knew that that was happening. So there's certainly an increased focus on making sure all that data was collected. One thing I mentioned in the opening was really about how do we make it easier for teachers to capture this data, or for staff to capture this data, and what happens when it's not easy. So one thing that we've done, we have a mobile app, and within that app, we have pulled in from the student information system students with their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, names, phone numbers, email addresses. And so then right from the app, it's really easy to make a call, and then as soon as you're done with that call, pops up a screen where you can log some notes. You can even use Siri to voice to text some notes about what you just talked to mom or dad about. Were you calling to say something positive, or were you calling to deliver some more challenging messages? So one thing that we, the reason that we did that was I remember talking to teachers in the early days, and this is when they were trying to log phone calls either in their student information system or in a spreadsheet. And I remember talking to teachers and saying, well, how do you, when are you even making these phone calls? And a lot of times they would say, oh, I'm making a call, I'm making some of these calls when I'm driving home from school, for example. And so you realize immediately, well, they're not going to log that call in a spreadsheet, while they're driving home from school. They're not going to log it in, their student information system when they're driving home from school. So, thinking through that workflow, we realized, oh, we really have to make this easier. We have to make this something that they could really do from the actual workflow that they're engaged in. So while they're driving home, could they actually, at a stoplight, just hit a couple of buttons, voice to text, and leave that note? And so one of the things we noticed, I mentioned how hard is it to collect the data? Well, the first year that I was working with collegiate academies, all of a sudden they were recorded 3 times as many phone calls as the previous year. Now, I don't think they really made 3 times as many phone calls, but you lose the value of having the data in a system, of being able to analyze the data and spot the trends and identify the families who haven't received a call if 2/3 of the calls aren't even getting recorded. So that's where I think it's really key to think about that whole workflow around how easy is it to collect the data that you want to collect, how easy is it to analyze it, and all of those things are interrelated in terms of whether you're even going to have good data to analyze. One final piece on this that we recognized from talking to folks at the beginning of this whole pandemic was people were saying, what we really want to do is assign sort of a coordinator to each family, rather than necessarily thinking about it in terms of maybe the more traditional terms where, I'm an advisor and I have 10 kids that I'm responsible for, and I'm, calling those families. One thing that a lot of people did is they said, well, we really want to make sure that we could call a family and check in on all of the kids at once, or deliver some message for all the kids at once, and then log all that information at once as well, so I could not have to do triple the work. And so one of the things we did was we released back in the spring of last year something that would help automatically identify students who maybe their siblings, maybe they're doubled up, whatever it might be, but identifying students based on a home address, based on a guardian in common, with the same email address or cell phone number, something to help identify where there might be some relationship that may not even have been explicitly known or identified already, to just make that more transparent, make that easier, make it allow schools to better serve families and better empathize and be better prepared when making those phone calls. So that's something, I'll touch on a few things throughout this that we've changed in the last year in relation to that kind of feedback that we've gotten from schools.